Which one to do first? That's the question. Well, actually, this is a 3-card trick, so it's not quite the same as actually choosing a card to put in the pack. Oh, look at that one there. What a bizarre hand to have. Even stranger. What's the last one got in it? Oh, crikey, look at that. Isn't that bizarre? Well, it's strange cards, and that's what I've been collecting for 50 years now, and I've got about 50 of them. I keep them in a case like this, and mostly are decks of cards, but this is a case where I was so fascinated by them. They didn't make many of these, of many different values. I just had the 3 cards on their own. Most of them are actually properly boxed. They're getting a bit tatty because they're very old cards, these. This, for instance, is a typical magician's deck, Demon Magic. And the magicians always do bizarre things with cards, and they make enough of them, or order enough, that it's worthwhile the people who make the cards do something like this. Every single card, the same thing. And then these backs would be the same one, but you'd have a different value, and they'd force cards and have all sorts of fun and games. So that's an idea of what magicians get up to. Almost unplayable. I can make card houses with it, actually, come to think of it, but there we are. This is a very strange one. I think I picked this up in the 1970s when I belonged to the English Playing Card Society, and I used to go to meetings for about half a year. And this is probably the 1930s or earlier. Bizarre idea for a deck of cards which has actually got 3 completely different play values, not just cards. There are cards. There's the Ace of Spades, there's the 2 of Spades, there's the 3 of Spades, but there's also a second game, as you can see there, which is dominos, and you can do dominoes games with them. They're not matching, so they won't do. And there's a third game up here, which is a spelling game as well. So there's some blurbs all in there telling me how to play with it 3 different ways, completely different ways, of which cards is just one little bit, the top third half of it. And there's 2 other games to play with it, which have nothing to do with cards at all. Very strange idea. Quite useful though, and quite versatile. I haven't seen them since, but I'd be interested to know if they're going to reproduce something like that. It looks as though it's an old one. It's made in England, but probably about 50, 60, 70 years ago, a long time back. Still, it's fun to have that in my collection. There's a thing called a Queen's Slipper, which I don't think I've ever heard of, and I haven't looked it up on the internet. I've got to find out if there's something more to it than just what I find. It's an ordinary deck of cards, this way, and this way is a perfectly ordinary deck of cards, except when you get into it, you realise that it's got perfectly good hearts up to there, and then for some bizarre reason they add an 11 of hearts, which you don't have an ordinary pack, and a 12 of hearts, and a 13. What on earth are those doing with all the other ones normal ones? And getting more bizarre as well, the next suit down has all the cards normally up to the king, and then would you believe it has 11 and 12 only. And this one has a 13, and the last one has a 12 only in it. So there's some game called the Queen's Slipper, which I can play with it. So I'll have a go sometime. I've got to sit down one evening and just read through the instructions, perhaps get a friend in for a bite to eat and play a game of the Queen's Slipper. If you've ever heard of it, let me know, because I've never seen it before and I've never seen it since. Then there's a very nice little thing here. This is extraordinary and very, very colourful. It's Piatnik, or I think Austrian company. They make wonderful cards, and it's a perfectly normal looking deck of cards. When you look at it, there's quite normal. I put them all in the right order there. There's the spades and the hearts, and then there's diamonds all the way up to the king, and then the clubs. The bizarre thing about this is the backs, which is unique. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Look at this. Take away the instructions and spread them out. Every single one has got a different pattern on it. Every single one. There's 52, jokers as well, so 54. I don't know, they say 56. There's probably a couple of spare cards, but every single one has got a very pretty bit of artwork on it. All different. So if you play a game of bridge, for instance, you could after a while learn what was on the back of Tutankhamun's, perhaps, or something, or remember it if you've got a good brain to remember it. What a very colourful thing. If nothing else, it would be good for making a card house or just for pretty pictures. What a strange pack though. Rainbow deck they call it, and it's marvellous. The last one is One that's really been highly entertaining, they commissioned way back in the 1970s or 1980s the deck of cards, they called it, and they commissioned 54 or 56 artists, individual artists around London and the home counties, to come up with designs for a deck of cards, not for a deck of cards, but a single card. So the backs is, if you play with this, it looks as if you can play, but you'll see the trouble in a minute when we start looking at it. So every single one of these has been designed by a different artist. Someone was given the chance of the task of making an ace of spades. That was his artwork. The second one, that's getting trickier now, is asked to design a two of spades. Well, if you look carefully in that picture, you do, oh yes, look, you see a spade here and a spade, or a shovel there. I call it the two of shovels, two of spades. That's what it's supposed to be. The three of spades is a bit easier, but it is so mixed up with all these other colourful things. If you were playing snap with this, you would have a devil of a job trying to say snap. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, because you don't know what. Some of them are a bit clearer than that, just pretty artwork. The four of spades. The five is tricky because it's actually 5 cards, which are spade cards, tucked away in the iris of a person's eye. Very strange. 6 is fair enough. 7s, you've got to do a bit of counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're spread out a bit and very small. 8's okay. 9's are bearable, I suppose. Tell about 10 of spades. There's some blurb there. You've got to read that rather carefully. And the jack and the queen of spades and the king of spades. And they go on throughout the deck, every single one being designed by different artists, right to the far end where the jokers come in, jokers as well. So wonderful, wonderful stuff to game. You don't want a game of snap or something like that. You've got to have a game where you have plenty of time to look at the card and work out what its value is if you want to do that. Otherwise, just use it as a bit of appreciation of art. So decks of cards can be a lot of fun to collect. I've got 50 of them, and there's just 6 of them. Huh.